trade. Closing bell's back right after this.
My broker says don't sweat it.
Searching for a more memorable short break? Fly from London Heathrow to Cork from $55.99 each way as part of a return trip with Aer Lingus. Step off the plane and into a warm welcome in Cork. Surround yourself with breathtaking coastal views, soak up the culture of Cork City, or head to the colourful town of Kinsale and indulge in the best seafood around. Smart enjoys a short break in Ireland. Smart flies, Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update.
Female First as Jay-Z and Beyonce are working on a new song together. A source tells The Sun that they recently shot a music video for their new track. It's one of her most extravagant and expensive shoots. It was mostly filmed in LA and has a highly choreographed routine and also a steamy romantic scene. She's working with some new creatives and is ready to change things up. To hear music from Beyonce, search today's hits on TuneIn.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. Well, today we've got NFL football. We've got the New York Giants at the New England Patriots. Kickoff is 8:20 p.m. Eastern if you want to catch that game.
We do everything each week to adjust the players that we have on the field and give them the best chance to compete against the team we're playing against. So this game will be no different.
Yeah, that football game, New England Patriots, New York Giants, right here, 8:20 p.m. Eastern. Search NFL so you don't miss a mo of the action today. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
Air, left field and deep. He's at the wall.
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
I believe ETFs are a great way to invest in the market. I just don't believe in market cap-weighted ETFs. My research shows how fundamentals can lead to performance, and that's exactly how WisdomTree builds their ETFs. To me, it's a better way to invest. Legacy ETFs that track the market? That's yesterday. Modern alpha ETFs built for performance? That's WisdomTree.
Carefully consider the fund's objectives, risks, charges, and expenses before investing. Obtain a prospectus at wisdomtree.com. Read it carefully.
Flight number 417 has been delayed.
You should be mad at airports.
Where's gate 87?
You should be mad at non-seasoned travelers.
And they took my toothpaste away.
And you should be mad at people who take unnecessary risks.
He's my emotional support snake.
But you're not mad, because you have E-Trade. This tech helps you understand the risk and reward potential on an options trade.
It's okay. It's not liquid or a gel.
And even explore what-if scenarios. Don't get mad. Get E-Trade and start trading today.
The Market Zone is sponsored by E-Trade, now with commission-free trading.
Just a little over 15 minutes left in the trading day. We're now in the closing bell market zone. This is commercial-free coverage of all the action going into the close.
CBC's senior markets commentator Mike Santoli is here to break down these crucial moments of the trading day. And today we've also got Stephanie Link from Nuveen. Let's kick things off with Bob Pisani and having a look at the trade-sensitive stocks that are performing today. Bob.
What you want to look at here, Wolf, is companies that have high revenue exposure to China, because predictably these are the ones that will tend to move when you see the kind of headlines that we're seeing today here. So take a look at Emerson Electric, for example. Significant amount of its revenues over in China, up about 2%. And this is what happens on the day like today. You get a lot of, I call them 2% movers. They move on these China headlines. Caterpillar, another one, also having a good day. And you see all the move here was earlier in the day when the president made that earlier tweet. There's another good example of a 2% move. Cummins Engine, another company with significant exposure to China and headlines around China there. Up again, you see all the move earlier in the day. And I've been just throwing a retailer that's often associated with China due to the way they do business. Kohl's also up 2.7%. Guys, back to you.
Bob, thanks so much for that. Mike, exposure to China also equates to the kind of cyclical aspects of tech, financials, energy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of part of this broader move where we are having a little bit of a perk up of the cyclical trade, bond yields up, this idea that maybe the economy maybe is running hotter than was expected. So a little bit of rotation happening. I don't think I think there's still plenty to prove here. We're mostly because we're really just traversing the same area, the same levels, and waiting and seeing. So the market's staying well supported, but I don't think any one day's moves within this band is giving you that much information.
Steph, a couple of days in a row, decent performance, but week to date, we still stand lower, which kind of sums up that, or it feels like there's positive momentum on trade, but one day kind of leads to bigger declines than the days of up days afterwards.
I mean, we're just churning. We're just churning, and I think maybe we can get out of this range during earnings season. We'll see. Let's see how the companies react, because there's no doubt industrial companies specifically are going to have to lower numbers. Probably energy companies as well. We'll see about the banks, probably too, right, given the yield curve. So if they actually go up on bad news, then that's actually a very good sign. So that's something that I'm watching for.
I think one of the benefits of this period where everyone's getting chopped up and you're getting whipsawed by the news is that it really has drained away a lot of optimism or confidence or conviction. And that's usually a setup for saying, once we get past a known event, then maybe there can be a relaxation trade and you can kind of find something else to focus on.
Maybe we've had the peak of panic in trade.
Perhaps,
maybe. We'll see.
Part of your charts that you showed us on the dashboard. Well, shares of Bed Bath & Beyond are sharply higher as it names Target's chief merchant, Mark Tritton, as its new CEO. We should note, however, 53% of the shares are held short, so short squeeze probably in play here with the shares of 22%. Now, the group of activists whose involvement ultimately led to the resignation of the former CEO and the turnaround plan are happy about Tritton. Chris Kuiper, he's one of the activists. He's at Legion Asset Management, tells me, quote, Mark Tritton is a superstar talent. We're so excited that he is joining Bed Bath & Beyond. We believe Mark Tritton has the skills to return Bed Bath & Beyond to greatness. Now, Tritton was a key part of the Target leadership team that reinvigorated tired stores, upgraded merchandise the last 3 years. That means the products themselves, the way they're priced, the way they're presented, including, importantly, developing new private label lines, something that really is part of the Bed Bath & Beyond turnaround plan. And we know, of course, private labels are more profitable. If you built the brand, you own it, you can decide how that's priced, and if the consumer loves it, they have to go to you to buy it. But there's a long road to go, right, Stephanie?
You know how long it took Target to actually get some traction? 4 years. And he was a CEO at a prior company. So I think this is great news. They needed a good, strong leader, but it's going to take so much time. And for those that are saying, well, it's trading at six times 2020 earnings, well, who the heck knows what earnings are going to be? They're probably going to have to spend a ton of money and slash those earnings. So you're really going to have to get comfortable with the earnings power story. And I just don't have a feel for that at this point, given the many different
and maybe shrink the store base, and who knows? I mean, I think the upside is there has been this line of conventional wisdom that each retail category, in theory, there was room for one traditional leader. So the Best Buy example, of course, everybody fixates on. I don't know if Bed Bath & Beyond kind of qualifies in that regard, if that's a category that really can have a strong brick-and-mortar leader.
Court, do we know how his options were priced? Because whether it's a short squeeze or not, 22% on the day you take over is very helpful.
That is very true. Yeah. I don't know, but that is a very good point there, Will.
Some recent IPO names sitting out today's rally. Leslie Picker has more on those movers. Hey, Les.
Hey, Will. Even as the broader market is in the green, there's been some pressure on shares of recent IPOs today. Take a look at the stocks of Uber, Zoom, Beyond Meat, others also in the red today. Investors starting to take money off the table as a wave of lockup expirations expirations are set to unfold over the next few weeks. These expiration dates are typically 6 months after an IPO. You recall all of those IPOs from the first half of the year. These lockup expirations allow insiders to sell their shares, and they have the potential to unleash an abundance of supply into the market. If that happens, guys, it can cause shares to fall even further throughout the fourth quarter. So something to definitely keep an eye on there, guys.
Yeah, Leslie, it's going to be interesting when the banks report, seeing how the revenues shake out for these IPOs and the guidance for the rest of the quarter. Leslie, thank you very much. Steph, what's your take on some of these IPOs and whether we've settled now post that sort of debacle around WeWork?
I mean, I don't think we've settled. That's the whole point, right? I think that's why these stocks are trading off so much. The market and investors just don't have an appetite for money-losing companies at this point at a very, very rich valuations. And so there are going to be some at some point, but I don't think they're down enough, quite frankly. And you do have these lockups that are still happening across the board. So I just don't think there's a reason to buy these names right here, not right now.
The only good news is that typically when you have the lockups, the selling gets done before the lockup really actually happens. So this is anticipation of new supply, but that hasn't, we haven't had the lockup yet. There's no valuation support here, and I doubt anybody wants to show these on their, quarterly statement at quarter end or year end, fiscal year end. So I think there's a headwind.
I usually wait a year, actually, after an IPO, just because, just to let the dust settle and let's get real investors in there, not flipping investors, that kind of thing, or traders rather. So I think it takes a while.
Next stock to focus in on is Morgan Stanley. As we already mentioned, the bank's performing well today. That's because of a reflation in the yield curve, but Morgan Stanley also benefiting from an upgrade from Sandler O'Neill. This, pretty much pure and simple, is a valuation call. They have slightly tweaked their earnings estimates, but they point out that Morgan Stanley's valuation has slipped, in particular relative to the group, which has been slipping anyway. They point out it's on 8.2 times PE versus the peer group at 9.7. Don't forget the S&P 500 is at over 16 times PE. It's also trading just below book value, about 0.9 times on their numbers. You've got low expectations, of course, about net interest income because of yield curve moves of late, though as a pure investment, more pure investment bank, they have less exposure to that, but they have exposure to the cyclicality in another way, which is wealth management, and might suffer also a little bit in the last couple of weeks because of this battle in terms of the brokers. Not really their area, but again, it's just broad price wars in investment management, which they're exposed to. It's very cheap, ultimately.
There's no doubt about it. Very cheap, and I think what is reflected in the cheapness is the idea that the traditional full-service wealth management model, while traditionally very secure and had stable fees and all the rest of it, long-term seems like it's pretty challenged by what's going on in the world and the next generation of investors. So that's not really something for this quarter. It doesn't change the fact that it's very cheap, but I do think that's what's the overhang.
Stephanie, it's interesting. I know you own Morgan Stanley, and for sort of last 3 or 4 years, one of the attractions of it versus Goldman Sachs, the other kind of more pure investment bank, has been this growing wealth management, which people have said is sticky. It's a source of capital. The margins are improving. Of course, you get later in a cycle, and it ceased to be one of the attractions.
Yeah, I think this is all about positioning wealth here in the near term. Everyone is piled into Goldman Sachs. Year to date, it's up 20%. Morgan Stanley is only up 4%, as you mentioned, and no one really is in the name in Morgan Stanley. And I think that could reverse, actually, if they have a good quarter. I mean, last quarter was really a disappointing one relative to Goldman, relative to some of the other banks. So I'm looking forward to low expectations. Yes, a cheap stock, and if they can just deliver, maybe the stock can actually have a bounce here.
I'd point out the best of the big banks today is Bank of America, up over 2%, again highlighting that most of today's move in the banks is down to the yield curve lifting, and also a reminder that they all report next week. Tuesday kicks off 4 of the big 6.
You're going to be busy on Tuesday, I think, Will. We've got about 6 minutes left to go. Goldman Sachs out with a new note on hardware, saying it's taking a more cautious approach as it anticipates further deterioration in the large enterprise spending names. Let's bring in CNBC's John Ford for his take. John, these names have already had a decent sell-off since the trade war began, really.
Yeah, they have, and it's gotten worse after this note. If you take a look at HP, take a look at Cisco, NetApp, for example, they're all named specifically in this report. This is really about uncertainty around this trade war with China. Morgan Stanley saying this isn't so much affecting small and medium business spending. It's these big businesses that are really hesitant to really spend because of uncertainty on how the trade war is going to work out. They've been doing checks throughout the year, and they specifically zero in on the period since May when the talks with China seem to have really gone south. And they say that it looks like it's getting worse for some of these companies. They mentioned specifically those three. They also mentioned commentary out of Dell hasn't been that positive. They're looking to see whether this is bottoming out or perhaps getting worse, though some of the signs they're looking at say it could be getting worse.
John, what are the last areas that see a cut to spending as this confidence starts to drain?
The last areas that see a cut to spending?
The areas that they're not cutting.
The areas that large businesses are not cutting? Well, the Goldman note more focused on the danger to the technology that large businesses do spend money on. So it's more the impact on tech versus the large businesses, what they're not cutting spending on. So they don't get into that as much as they do who's likely to get hit. Now, on the flip side, Pure Storage, for example, that's a company that got an upgrade from Goldman because its base is more small and medium businesses who are not as impacted by this uncertainty. I guess they have more room to grow and run.
John, thanks so much. Steph, you've been focused on these notes as well. You talked about it a bit earlier.
So where they're going to spend is cloud and security, I believe, because that's really very, very important, especially security. And we're hearing that from companies overall. But, I think that there are a lot of companies that are at risk in terms of software and in hardware, maybe probably more for hardware than software. Software, a little more recurring revenue. But the problem with software stocks, especially the SaaS companies, they're still expensive, even though they've pulled back so much. So it's just something to watch. 2018 saw very strong spending because of the tax benefits. And so we knew that we were going to see a slowdown. So let's see if this slowdown actually can stabilize. But it is something to watch, especially because it's 26% of the S&P weighting.
We've got just under 4 minutes left to trade. We're high by 140 points on the Dow. The high of the session was up 260. Mike's had a look at the market internals. Mike.
Yeah, just take a look at market breadth, New York Stock Exchange breadth. It's pretty good today. It's about 2-to-1 to the upside. Of course, we had a much stronger rally in the indexes in the morning. I do think in general, though, there has been a little bit of concern about the trend in the advancers versus decliners. It has sort of rolled over from all-time highs. If you want to find something, be bearish about the number of stocks that are kind of losing some steam under the surface might be one thing, but I do also want to compare the S&P move to 10-year Treasury yield. I'm sure Rick's going to hit the yield move, but we actually have seen this track pretty well since July. That's about when the 10-year Treasury went below 2%, and so you see today, you do have a tailwind of those yields going up to about an October high, at least, on the 10-year level.
And Mike, we mentioned volumes with Bob earlier. Up days seeing lower volumes than the down days.
That's been a trend for a very long time, and it's absolutely pronounced right now, especially when you have a lot of people who feel like uncertainty means hesitate, don't act. And I think that's what the trade talk's ongoing.
If you take a look at the transports today, outperforming, higher by 1.2%. I mean, that's something we watch
Transports
closely.
right along that cyclical move. Transports materials also, as well as energy, just getting a 1% pop for no real reason except for this general move in yields and toward macro.
I'd also point out as well, clearly the yield move significant. The dollar DXY down almost 0.5%.
Exactly.
Now that's almost purely because of a 2% move higher in the British pound, but nonetheless helpful for sentiment.
That's how the choreography works, all those things moving together,
Makes sense. Well, 2 minutes left to go. We're going to send it over to Rick Santelli. He's going to give us a check on the bonds. Hi, Rick.
Hi, and definitely a wild time in the fixed income markets globally. Look at a 2-day of 10s. We're 166, up 8 basis points on the day. It certainly looks like European rates may be leading the charge higher, or less negative in their case. Look at a 2-day of boons. They were up 9 basis points. Finally, the dollar index, you just mentioned it. Indeed, it is softening up a bit. It looks to be the lowest close since 9/24, September 24th. Bertha, 3 days up in the NASDAQ, but still down on the week.
Yeah, just still fractionally down on the week, although Apple is higher for the week and within a few dollars of its all-time highs, putting in a new high for the year. It looks to close at the highest level for 2019. And the interesting thing is at the beginning of the year, Microsoft surpassed Apple in market cap and was really the momentum mover here on the NASDAQ. Now that has switched back as Apple moves higher. As Apple's at a new high, we had 5 times as many new lows as new highs on the NASDAQ today, including Lyft, which now is valued at about $11 billion, Bob. That's about half the valuation it had when it went public in March.
Yeah, rough day for a lot of IPOs, Bertha. So once again, trade-related cyclical names all rallied. I call it the 2% club. A lot of these names typically move on these headlines. So Dow Chemical, for example, moved rather aggressively today. You saw that up about 2%. That's a typical example. Even energy stocks with oil up more than $1 today. That's a 2% move for oil. Chevron up 1.3%. Exxon also on the upside. I mentioned some of these deep industrial names like Emerson Electric, another 2% mover. What declined, of course, the more defensive names that we saw, like Con Ed and most of the utilities, all fractionally down. And there's the closing bell. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing off of the highs, but still up nicely, 130 points.
To the closing bell, everyone. I'm Wilfred Frost.
And I'm Courtney Reagan, and today for Sarah Eisen, along with Mike Santoli, CNBC's senior markets commentator. We are in the market zone. You can see the day's market action on the right side of your screen with the stories that are still coming up on the tabs on the bottom of your screen.
Let's check in how we finished. The Dow was higher by 0.6%, or in points time 154 points, off the highs of the day, but nonetheless still a positive session. S&P up a similar amount, 0.65, as was the Nasdaq. Only one sector was lower. Utilities, a reflation trade at play. Energy, financials, materials led the charge. Worth pointing out, though, Court, week to date we are still lower, and week to date every sector is lower. So the last couple of days where it's been a pretty broad rally in perspective in that sense.
Yeah, still some ground to make up. Well, joining us to talk about the market day, Stephanie Link. She's head of global equities research at Nuveen. She's still with us. And joining us now is Chris Bretzler. He's Needham Growth Fund portfolio manager. Mike, here we go. We finished the day, Dow higher, and leading the way, Caterpillar, that trade-sensitive name.
Exactly. So I do think we can safely say we came into the week without a lot priced in the way of grand success on the trade talk. So any inkling that there might be potential progress, I think, is just sort of filtering its way into the market. But it's tentative, and I think that this range trade has really kind of frustrated both sides, bulls and bears. Now, you're getting some decent economic numbers coming through, too, and the bond yields rising today pretty strongly. I think it's also lending this idea that maybe that heavy recession trade got overdone in August and again this month, and maybe that's a reason why the market has stayed supported. It's still in this little uptrend from January, or pretty significant uptrend from January, so nothing really has changed in the overall structure of the market. I think they want this trade stuff just sidelined for a while to get the next move for the fourth quarter.
Chris, if it is sidelined and we start to focus on earnings, are you optimistic or pessimistic?
Look, I think the earnings season we're about to enter, the expectations had already been lowered generally, so earnings seasons will be fine, but I think we got to look to what's the guidance. And I think CEOs and CFOs are out there all reading the same headlines that we're seeing, and so I would probably think that they're going to be a little bit cautious going into the year end. What we're more excited about and looking towards is 2020. We think earnings really can reaccelerate next year during an election season, and so we think that that's where you need to be placing your bets. But you know, earnings season gives us an opportunity to deploy a lot of capital, and so we're looking forward to the next few weeks here.
I think others are also looking forward to hearing more about the fundamentals of all these companies, but still, is it going to be enough to drown out what's happening in Washington or what's not happening?
Look, as a long-term active investor, I think fundamentals are where you need to stay long-term. So there's noise out there in D.C., there's noise always geopolitically, but for long-term investors, I think there's going to be some great opportunities to put money to work. But you have to be a little more flexible. We carry a little bit more cash in these times. Take advantage when, small caps kind of trade by appointment. We really like to invest when we see the fat pitch. So I think investors that are at home, institutional investors are as confused as they are at times. So be patient, and I think, wait for that fat pitch.
Steph, are you a bit more optimistic that this earnings season can be the catalyst as opposed to waiting until early next year?
I think earnings expectations are so low at this point, and I don't think you're going to see an earnings recession, and we hear about that every single day. I just don't see that happening, right? I don't think you're going to have great earnings, 5, 6, 7% kind of number, but a low single digit I think is enough. I think there's certain sectors that you want to be involved in. I think you definitely want to be in housing. I think you definitely want to be in the consumer for sure. But I actually still think that you could pick at some of these really cheap cyclical names because the expectations are so low. And as I mentioned last hour, that it's going to be the reactions that tell us a lot. And listening to these conference calls and listening to what these companies are going to say, they're certainly going to be conservative. They should be conservative. That's okay. Let's see how they react.
Everyone stick with us. Let's get to Kayla Tausche for some of the latest on the China trade talks. Kayla.
Wilfred, as talks extend into late afternoon, we have seen some principals peel off. The Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin leaving the USTR's office just a few moments ago. He has been spearheading negotiations on the currency portion of these talks. Remember, Treasury back in August labeled China a currency manipulator. And the Chamber of Commerce, in a press call earlier today with reporters, said that both a currency pact and potential licenses for Huawei suppliers are expected to be centerpieces of any interim deal. Of course, President Trump is the final decision maker. We will see how he feels about any potential interim deal and the state of trade talks tomorrow when he says he'll meet with the vice premier himself. Wolf and Courtney.
Kayla, remind us what time things are meant to happen tomorrow and when we're expecting the full delegation to leave.
Well, we'll see. We don't know the exact start time for tomorrow. Usually that depends on how much work is left to be done. We know the president is leaving in the afternoon to go to Joint Base Andrews to head to a rally in Louisiana. So we expect that meeting could be sometime midday, but we don't know exactly when. If there are a few T's to cross and I's to dot before then, you could see officials back here at USTR to hammer that out. If they feel they've finished today, perhaps they will just sleep in.
Caleb, thanks so much for that. Mike, as you said, coming into the week, maybe expectations weren't that high. If we get an Oval Office smiling handshake tomorrow, is that not priced in yet? Would that be a boost?
No, I think that would probably be a relief trade off of that. I just don't know how far it carries us in either direction, or is going to be the reason that we get carried. I really just think we want to get past it. It could be a crazy overnight session too. I guarantee there's going to be reports characterizing what happened today. Last night we had a tremendous sell-off on this kind of vapor of a report that the Chinese delegation was going to leave early. Anyway, the point being, the traders are going to chop this thing up every which way, but it hasn't really changed in terms of the net direction of the market. You know, we're talking about the earnings setup earlier. It's very much like the past two quarters. Very low expectations. Most companies beat, guidance mixed. Well, April and July, those two reporting months, were good months for the market. Now, it didn't take us up and away because you pulled back afterward, but it seems like we have the makings for some kind of relief trade, even if we have to, who knows, get a little bit oversold with a trade scare beforehand.
We'll see what will happen. We have so many hours between now and tomorrow morning when the session opens. Let's get to Bob Pisani for a look at the stocks in today's winner's circle, at least. Hi, Bob.
And as we've been emphasizing, the 2% club, I call them the 2%, the 2% that typically move when trade-related names are in the news here. So if you take a look here, Dow Chemical, for example, had a big day. We saw Caterpillar also with a big day, moving nicely. These are all names that move on trade-related headlines. We saw J.P. Morgan as yields started moving up, and a lot of people are speculating whether yields are at a bottom yet for the year. Moved up. Goldman Sachs also had a pretty good day. Oil stocks, as oil moved more than $1, that's a 2% move for oil. And normally you'll get a nice move, 1 to 2%. In all the oil majors, we saw that with Chevron. We also saw that with Exxon. The question, of course, is whether there's any kind of comprehensive deal. Most people feel that's very small here. Truce being more likely. And then the question is, as Mike said, they chop it up and figure out, can a truce really get us through to Christmas? And that's what nobody's quite sure of at this point. Guys, back to you.
Thanks, Bob. That's a good point, Stephanie. Obviously, I focus a lot on the consumer and retail. How important is this holiday season to make sure that the consumer is strong enough to hold us through these bumps?
That's really important. It's 70% of GDP, so consumer is super important. I think it's going to be just fine. And I look at the job numbers, wages, but also housing. I think housing is inflecting higher, and that's a good thing. So overall, I think if we get a detente in the trade and economic data stays pretty good, to Mike's point earlier, it's actually been a little bit better than expected. Rates are starting to move higher. Oil actually has stabilized and moving a little higher. Market likes it when oil actually goes up. It's more that risk-on feel. So all these things are actually positive. Those are the encouraging signs, and that's why I still think you can pick away at fundamentals. And let's get through the next couple of weeks of earnings.
Chris, where do you stand on the small caps?
Well, I think that the small caps should begin to do better as we reaccelerate. They typically need a little bit more growth. And so we've been cautious here, in the last months of the summer and going into October. But I think as we get close to the end of the year and we get through earnings season, I believe the outlook's going to begin to look better for that asset class. High yield continues to remain strong, which is generally good proxy for small cap strength here.
Stephanie and Chris, we will leave it there. Thank you both very much for joining us.
Thanks.
Still ahead here on Closing Bell.
The retail industry is speaking out on tariffs.
Honest to God, what is going on? This is just like another one-way ticket on the Titanic. The Grinch has stolen Christmas from us. We don't know what else there is to steal.
After the break, Rick Helfenbein weighs in on the latest trade developments and the impact on American retail. Closing Bell will be right back.
Can you customize the S&P 500 to meet your Carl's All Change Casserole?
So, Chloe walks in from school, tears all over her face.
Daddy,
She says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat, but not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch, a dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
The Better Network is now on TuneIn. This is Brian Musburger. Search the Better Network. That's the BETR Network. And then let us get you better prepared to better enjoy the day in sports. The NFL, college football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Sharpen your edge. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Be better informed. Be better prepared. Search the Better Network. That's BETR.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Big businesses under fire as pressure mounts between Hong Kong and China. Apple's App Store are moving a police-tracking Hong Kong map app just days after its approval. In a letter to employees, Apple CEO Tim Cook defending the decision to remove the app, saying in part, quote, the app was being used maliciously to target individual officers for violence and to victimize individuals and property where no police were present. Meanwhile, some gamers boycotting Activision after the company stripped a pro gamer of all tournament earnings after he expressed support for the Hong Kong protests.
Meanwhile, the NBA is going through damage control with China after a pro-Hong Kong protest tweet by one team's general manager sparked many Chinese partners to cut ties with the league. Eric Chemi looks at which NBA stars have the biggest business connections to China. Hi there, Eric.
Hi, that's right, Courtney. So many NBA players, they've got their own direct relationships with Chinese companies and Chinese fans. Retired stars like Shaq, Kevin Garnett, Dwayne Wade have all had signature shoe sponsorships from Chinese shoemakers. But there are now more than a dozen current NBA players with endorsement deals from the three major Chinese shoemakers, Li Ning, Anta, and Peak. Klay Thompson, CJ McCollum, and Rajon Rondo are among some of the bigger names of active players. ESPN reported that Klay Thompson's 10-year deal with Anta could be worth as much as $80 million. But even stars with U.S. company shoe deals have serious Chinese exposure. Kevin Durant's manager said Durant sells more Nikes in China than in America. Steph Curry makes regular trips to China to visit with fans, along with other MVPs like LeBron James, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. At least 30 NBA players visit China each summer, while top stars can make more than $1 million to do so. So it's no surprise, then, that NBA players as a whole have been basically silent regarding the Hong Kong protests and the controversy with the Chinese government. Back to you.
Eric, thanks very much for that. Let's bring in Rick Helfenbein, CEO of the American Apparel and Footwear Association. Rick, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
Where do you stand on this latest spat? Do you think it's going to spread to some of the shoe manufacturers, the apparel manufacturers as well, if they don't take a side either way?
You know, it's hard enough fighting the tariffs here at home. The biggest emerging market for our shoe guys is China. We want to sell into China. I think that's one of the things that President Trump had said early on, market access. So I hope this doesn't blow up into something worse than it is. NBA's in a really tough spot. They can't play basketball on both sides of the court at the same time. It's very awkward.
With a company, say, like Nike, have they complained that just the trade war itself was hurting, aside from sales in the US and tariffs coming in with the costs here, were they complaining that sales in the US are struggling because of having a US image, and do you fear that this is going to worsen things for them?
No, I think the trade war environment in general has just made things difficult. We're suffering in the U.S., particularly on athletic shoes, which September 1 were hit with 15%. Remember, we're already paying duty and then 15% on top of it. It's a margin compression issue. But if you want to talk about growth markets, the U.S. has not been growing. China has been growing more than 20% for Nike. So it's a huge market. It's very important to them. It's very important to Adidas. It's very important to sell into China. So this is really a tough spot.
If we can talk about where we are right now, Rick, when it pertains to the trade war and the retailers, obviously nobody wants their products to cost more, but the consumer in the United States is strong. And we've talked to a lot of different retail companies and CEOs that are afraid it will weaken, but so far haven't seen it weaken. And they seem to have been doing a pretty good job of mitigating the costs, actually. Are the fears overblown?
No, the fears aren't overblown, but I'll tell you what happened. The minute we were hit with the last round, the 15% round, which hit, by the way, 91% of all apparel on September 1, 53% of all footwear, everybody jumped on a plane, flew over to China, and said, what can we do to get us through Christmas? That's exactly what they did. And we will get through Christmas. And the consumer being strong is great. 4%, a little more than 4% up is good. Remember, last year at Christmas, the government was on furlough. The stock market was in the really not a good place, you remember? So the point is, you're against a bad background, and you're showing some growth. We'll get through the Christmas season. We got next year to go. What do we do? Remember, we buy 6 to 9 months in advance. We're looking at spring and the early fall of next year, and we're at 15%. What if it goes to 25%? What if it goes to 30%? We don't have a place to go. We're kind of suffering in our own skin, so to speak.
There's a sense out there, we hear it a lot amongst many guests, that perhaps the administration is looking for an opportunity to dial back a little bit, to essentially not put the next rounds in place or escalate further. Do you have any indication that that might be the case or not?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that something positive may come out of the talks right now. But, if they hold back the 25% from going to 30%, it's $12 billion. It's not statistically significant. It's just a delay of what we fear is inevitable. We need the whole thing to go away. I mean, can this idea of tariffs? It's bad. It's not helping.
I get that more tariffs going incrementally on existing tariffs gets harder, and there's only so many times you can accept that. But last time you were on, before the latest round was imposed, you described it as a total disaster for American consumers and American businesses and the American economy. It hasn't been that yet, has it? Was there some level of over-exaggeration of the doom and gloom? Did you miscalculate it a bit? At the moment, we haven't seen that hit.
No, I think my exact words to you were, we're cooked. And I stand by, we're cooked.
Well, I do have the quote here. You did say we're cooked, but you also said it would be a disaster for the American consumers, American business, and the American economy.
It's 100% true. It just hasn't happened yet. We've been able to push it out. As long as your consumer stays strong, as long as they're still buying, as long as unemployment trails low, consumer confidence is holding. When that drops, everything's going to drop with it. And look at the retailers. We don't have the margin. We don't have the margin. We can't make money. We can make sales. Well, what good are sales without money?
But even the fact that it's been pushed out, that is slightly better than perhaps was forecast.
Gives us more time, but to reestablish our supply chains, we need 3 to 5 years. You're giving us 3 to 5 months. Doesn't work. Can't do it. We're still cooked.
We are going to have you back, and we're going to keep following along and see just how far we're cooked, how well done we are. Rick Helfenbein, thank you for being here with us today. Well, coming up next, we will break down the charts to see why history says the market may be about to break out into a year-end rally.
Plus, a top-ranked financial advisor explains how you can protect your portfolio amid trade war fears. We're back in a couple minutes.
At Argos, save up to 25% off furniture across thousands of lines. Our autumn-winter home and furniture collection is here. So stylish, you can wear it. With Argos, you're good to go. Offer ends the 22nd of October. Offer excludes nursery, bathroom and garden furniture. Conditions apply, subject to availability selected lines.
If you can drive a van that's built in Britain, with class-leading fuel economy on every run, to Middlesex to do some masonry, or to Tunbridge, carrying well over a ton. Yours is the all-new Vauxhall Vivaro, and you'll be driving a great Brit van, my son. All-new Vauxhall Vivaro carries British business. To find out more, search New Vauxhall Vivaro.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations,
Live commercial-free news from MSNBC,
and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Catch the latest news as it happens with MSNBC on TuneIn. From American politics to global events, when breaking news hits, you'll never miss a moment again. Search MSNBC on TuneIn to hear the latest.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Camila Cabello tells The Sun that dating Shawn Mendes is scary. She says, it's almost more scary because you have more to lose. I think when you fall in love with someone you've known for a long time, there's more at stake. But it also feels more special because it feels like the love story you see in the movies of people who have known each other for a long time but have been too stupid to realize it or say it, and then it happens, and that's beautiful too. To hear music from Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello, search today's hits on TuneIn.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium. Today, hear the home and away call as the second place NFC East New York Giants visit the first place AFC East New England Patriots at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
It is long enough, and it is good!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
I think the president is right when he says the Fed funds rate is too high for no real reason. Remember, a year ago, the Fed tightened aggressively to get out ahead of potential inflation. They should do the same thing right now to get out ahead of potential slowdown.
Welcome back to the closing bell. Let's send it over to Mike Santoli for his final dashboard of the day. Hi, Mike.
Wait, this is the final one? I thought we had a fourth one. We'll see.
Wait, we do.
This
Okay.
is the 10th month of the year.
Courtney just made the decision. We're dropping.
What's that?
So pick one. No, I'm
See you
just
tomorrow.
kidding.
No, 10th month of the year is about 1/3 done. Let's see what happens on a average basis around this time of the year in terms of seasonal patterns for the market. So this chart shows kind of the composite seasonal path from 1950, the S&P 500. If you averaged all of the one-year charts together, it tends to look something like this. Now, I will say we had a massive move up at close to 20% at the beginning of the year. So the shape of this year looks very much like this, but the magnitude is quite different coming off a low base. But right around here is where we are. So getting into late October tends to be the time, if seasonal forces matter, and last year they didn't matter at all, this is when you might get a headwind turning into a tailwind after a typically choppy October. I said last year we basically went immediately south. They had all these seasonal factors and which election year which cycle we were in the election year. Everything seemed to work in favor of the bulls being in charge for the fourth quarter. It didn't work. I guess my question is, what are the chances that these typical seasonal effects fail spectacularly 2 years in a row? That's something we'll have to see.
I mean, the other point, Mike, is that in terms of typical year-to-date performance, albeit after a big sell-off in Q4, we're already well ahead of the average year.
No, exactly, yes. So that, without a doubt, the magnitude not telling you. It's much more about the cadence of the year and when you might see certain pullbacks. So that's roughly fit, but you're absolutely right. We're up, 16, 17% year to date right now, have been up as much as 20.
And it just doesn't feel like an average year in any way with
That's
everything
true,
that's going on either.
Mike, thank you for the third and penultimate installment of the dashboard. Up next, the CEO of life insurance company Prudential PLC will tell us where in the world he sees the biggest growth opportunities.
Plus, find out if it's time to get defensive in this volatile market environment. We're joined by a top-ranked financial advisor. The Closing Bell. We'll be right back.
The chance of being hurt while using a leaf blower is about 3,000 to 1. Oh, unlucky. Never mind, at Curry's PC World, there's a 1 in 10 chance to get half your money back on all 2019 LG OLED TVs, like the LG C9, described by Which as simply the best. Get blown away with Apple AirPlay, Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa built in. And there's up to £500 off. So the question is, are you feeling lucky? At Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply. GB16 plus. See currys.co.uk.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Female first as Jay-Z and Beyonce are working on a new song together. A source tells The Sun that they recently shot a music video for their new track. It's one of her most extravagant and expensive shoots. It was mostly filmed in LA and has a highly choreographed routine and also a steamy romantic scene. She's working with some new creatives and is ready to change things up. To hear music from Beyonce, search today's hits on TuneIn.
Catch the latest news as it happens with MSNBC on TuneIn. From American politics to global events, when breaking news hits, you'll never miss a moment again. Search MSNBC on TuneIn to hear the latest.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores.
What's happening in college football this week? This Saturday, another clash of undefeated SEC teams. This time in Baton Rouge under the lights. The Florida Gators take their perfect season on the road to face Joe Burrow and the high-scoring LSU Tigers. The action starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just search college to listen today. The MLB is in full swing.
Looking up, and this one is up and out. A home run.
Swung on and into the air to deep left. That ball is high. That is far. That is gone.
To listen, just search MLB Today on TuneIn Premium so you don't miss a moment of the games on TuneIn.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Welcome back to the Closing Bell. We have some news on Walmart when it pertains to some executive moves. John Furner is going to be the new president and CEO of Walmart US. He is currently with the company and he currently runs Sam's Club. And this as Greg Foran is going to be leaving Walmart. So he is vacating the position of Walmart US CEO. And he is going to Air New Zealand Limited. Greg Foran is originally from New Zealand, so perhaps this move makes a bit of sense for him to go back home. But he's been running Walmart stores since August of 2014, and they've really had a nice run under Greg Foran's leadership. He fixed a lot of sort of basic fundamentals when it came to cleaning up the stores, making sure the employees had what they needed, both for their lives as far as benefits, but also the tools in stores to better help customers. So he's really done a lot for that company. As he moves on to Air New Zealand Limited, and we have John Furner moving over from Sam's Club, who's been with Walmart or the company as a whole at least, for 25 years, Mike. And when you look at shares of Walmart, they've had a nice run, but it's kind of been steady as she goes for some time now.
I was going to say, yeah, so both you can say somebody has done a good job and it's not anything to worry about that they're leaving, but also that the company itself seems to have strategically been in the right place. It's not as if one person is going to change that story.
Foran saying as well, he couldn't pass up the opportunity to lead an iconic Kiwi brand back home. So I think you
might have something to do
with that. I think I got that one, yeah.
After hours, essentially flat for Walmart, having traded higher in the session earlier today. Time for a CNBC News Update with Sue Herrera. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Will. Hello, everyone. Here's what's happening at this hour. More on the two associates of Rudy Giuliani arrested on campaign finance violations. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York says Ukrainians Lev Parnas and Igor Furman were arrested at Dulles Airport last night as they were getting ready to leave the country with one-way tickets.
The defendants broke the law to gain political influence while avoiding disclosure of who was actually making the donations and where the money was coming from. They sought political influence not only to advance their own financial interests, but to advance the political interests of at least one foreign official.
A powerful winter storm has moved into the Great Plains. Bismarck, North Dakota is one of the hardest hit areas. Strong winds and double-digit snowfall totals are expected there and other western states. Some are calling it a potentially historic October winter storm. And Simone Biles has won another World Championship gold medal. She took home first place in the all-around competition by a record margin. She now has 22 all-World Championship medals, the most by any female gymnast in history. Congratulations to her.
Reminds me of my typical gym session.
She's so cool.
She is really cool.
How high would you
so
have
is
to
Will,
jump to get
but,
that many flips in?
Yeah, Will was cool too, but he can't jump that high.
I would break my neck. I would just, oh God, don't even start. She is epic and incredible.
She really is. Very cool.
Sue, thank you. As China trade talks heat up, many companies are looking to navigate the potentially changing landscape. Prudential plc is one of the world's leading financial groups providing insurance and investment service operations in Asia, the United States and Europe. Last year, the Asia market accounted for about half of Prudential plc's earnings, and new business profit in that region outpaced the US and Europe. Joining us exclusively to discuss Prudential plc CEO Mike Wells. Mike, thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Very quickly, for those people that don't know, what's the difference compared to Prudential Financial here?
Quite a bit of difference. So our primary markets, our business here is Jackson National Life, which is an annuity retirement services business. And the bulk of our footprint is in 14 markets in Asia. And we started in the UK 170 years ago. Have an asset manager there, M&G, and a traditional, very strong position in pensions and life there. And we're actually in the process of demerging that from the international businesses. And I'm here on a U.S. roadshow meeting with investors.
And so after you've split off some of the UK-Europe business, you're going to be half and half, a little bit more to Asia and to the US. Let's talk about the Asia business first of all, because insurance doesn't often get seen as a high growth business, but in Asia it is.
It is, yes. Historic rates have been about 15%. In most markets in Asia, there's no government support for retirement income or health. So what you see is the consumers tend to self-insure by keeping a lot of money in cash. So it's an interesting area to do business. You have usually government support and sort of a tailwind to privatize some of that risk. We're one of the largest players in the region. We're in 14 markets there, and operating earnings up 14% in that business the first half of the year, and it continues to grow year on year very successfully.
Have you seen impacts of the trade war, and is it shaken out differently across certain countries?
It has. We're seen as a British firm, so the direct impact on U.S. tensions had very little effect on us. I think you see it in Southeast Asia. There's a narrative emerging that I don't candidly agree with, but that a lot of pundits are saying that some of those countries are going to have to choose relationships and things, and they see sort of a binary outcome in it. I think there's some flaws in that logic, in both from a historical point of view, and they tend to compare it to the Cold War. And there wasn't a whole lot of trade between the East and the West in the Cold War. And these two countries both need each other and a lot of goods and services. So I think it's a poor comparison, but I meet a lot of leaders and policymakers who are worried about those sorts of tensions, but more in Southeast Asia.
How about as it pertains to what's going on with Brexit in the UK and how that affects the relationships with the rest of the European countries in which you operate?
So I've had the pleasure of being CEO from the start of Brexit, and it's been an interesting experience to be on the ground for it. When you get that sort of wide mandate in the populace, and marginal support. You're seeing this now in governments around the world where you're elected and you're responsible for delivering something, and you have a 51% election or mandate. It's a very difficult thing to execute on. We've prepped our businesses for it. Our UK businesses have CCAVs in Luxembourg, and they're very, very successful at raising money in assets across Europe. So that was probably something we could have or should have done structurally anyway. But it's almost 30 million pounds, and you get it done quickly, and you make sure you're ready for the shape of whatever comes. But candidly, at this point, I wouldn't try to predict even next week's news, let alone the outcome. European friends have varying emotional responses to it. Some think it's an interesting thing. Some think it's disloyal. You get that whole range. It's got a lot of emotion around it.
In the US business, Jackson Life, you sell a lot of retirement products and annuities. Are you seeing a structural shift away from annuities versus more kind of modern investment products, as it were? And similarly, on the cyclical side, with yields so low, are they in fact getting a bit of a renaissance?
So a bit of the latter. So you've had uncertainty with the Department of Labor and the SEC over what the sales practices should look like in the United States. What should be a commission trade? What should be a fee-based trade? There's a little better line of sight on that now. If you had Morgan Stanley or Merrill Lynch or one of the firms on, they would feel like they know what to do. Those firms' business models at the retail level are moving more and more towards financial plans, often very sophisticated plans. The advantage of the products is you can stay in equities longer into your retirement. So that has a technical sort of tailwind to it. But it's been it's been an interesting year. There's been a lot of capital changes, things. Most of that's behind the business, and we're obviously very well positioned for that.
Just quickly want to snap back to the Asia business. A significant amount of your sales is in Hong Kong. I guess the protests always front and center have been for a number of months now. It kind of gives the image that things are grinding to a halt. What's it like, though, for financial firms? I know it's not business as usual because there's a lot of challenges there, but are you still able to operate, the vast majority of your business?
Yeah, so we're one of the largest life insurers in Hong Kong, and we also have a regional office there. And the business that we write there is, for consumers, is typically a savings product that they invest in every year, and they can choose to have additional resources go to education, go to health if they want access to doctors, a variety of different things. So it's almost a subscription type business from an investor point of view. So a given year's sales don't affect the earnings particularly because so much of the earnings come from the existing relationships with clients. But you are seeing tensions. It doesn't change demand locally. Demand is up locally, and that part of the business is growing significantly. It changes a bit of the comfort level of people having traveling. So we get a short-term hit. But we've been there since 1960s. Mm-hmm. So we've seen other disruptions in Hong Kong. As its political environment develops, and it's true in other markets we're in around the world. So it tends to defer transactions. It doesn't tend to stop people from saving for their children's education or retirement or whatever their objective is.
Mike, thanks for joining us. Great to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Mike Wells. Now, Slack just out with some new user metrics, and Digital has the details for us. Hi, Dee.
Hey, Wilf, that comes in a blog post. Slack updating its user growth, saying it now has 12 million daily active users. Notably, guys, the post was titled, "Not all daily active users are created equal. Work is fueled by true engagement." This is likely a not-so-subtle dig at Microsoft, which said in July that its competing Teams app had over 13 million users. Last week, Slack CEO Stuart Butterfield told CNBC they're not comparing the same thing when they say daily active users. Analysts have echoed that sentiment, but Slack shares, as you can see, they've been under pressure from that competition, down 30% over the last 3 months, still trading below its direct listing reference price. Back to you.
Thank you, Deirdre, for those new user numbers from Slack. Well, blackout outage up next. We're going to get the latest details on when millions of people in California can expect to have their power restored amid PG&E's second day of rolling blackouts.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live. Regular season matchups and rivalry games. Conference championships and bowl games. The college football playoff.
The throw, he steps up, he's going deep down the right side. Andrews.
You can listen to it all for free.
The end zone, touchdown.
At home, on campus, or on the road, hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long free on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free.
Get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade. It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Camila Cabello tells The Sun that dating Shawn Mendes is scary. She says, it's almost more scary because you have more to lose. I think when you fall in love with someone you've known for a long time, there's more at stake. But it also feels more special because it feels like the love story you see in the movies of people who have known each other for a long time but have been too stupid to realize it or say it, and then it happens, and that's beautiful too. To hear music from Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello, search today's hits on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. As expected, Carly Pearce and Michael Ray got married over the weekend. It was held at a Nashville area farm and about 100 guests attended. Jake Owen performed his song, Made for You, for the couple's first dance. Carrie Underwood posted a video of herself performing an a cappella version of The Champion, while 8-year-old Savannah DeHaan did it in sign language. The video has gone viral. To hear music from Carly Pearce and Carrie Underwood, search Country Roads on TuneIn.
Welcome back. We've got some after-hours trade headlines which have moved the markets higher. You can see that S&P 500 ETF up about 0.3% after the close. Some headlines crossing that President Trump says he does not know. That's the wrong one. Excuse me. President Trump saying that China trade talks went very well today. The talks will continue tomorrow, which is, I guess, the key thing relative, Mike, to the headline we had late last night after the close. And continues a tone of optimism over the course of the last 24 hours.
Certainly the first marker of whether, in fact, today was somewhat constructive. I think we came into today, I mean, a little less than 24 hours ago, these reports that the Chinese delegation was going home after one day. Clearly, that's not the case right now. And it shows you the market is kind of primed to express a little bit of relief once this seems to be moving along, although I think only after you get some kind of progress will you see if that's really what's been holding back the market or not.
Mm-hmm. So they didn't pack up and leave. They're starting some more talks tomorrow. All right, well, shares of utility PG&E plunging after an unfavorable bankruptcy ruling. Meanwhile, millions in California are without electricity as PG&E initiates a second day of rolling blackouts. Josh Lipton has the latest details for us. Hi, Josh.
Hey there, I want to bring you guys just the latest stats that we have available to us about what's going on out here. So 137,000 customers with restored power at this point, but still 600,000 customers without power. 34 of 58 counties in the state are impacted. So this is big and it is broad. In terms of the economic impact, you could be seeing as much as $2.5 billion. Now, we're here in Berkeley, California, the Berkeley Hills specifically. I did talk to one resident here today, had his power cut off, but he said he had stocked up on provisions with his wife. And he, interestingly, was not upset with PG&E. He wasn't upset with the utility. He said, in his belief, they were simply doing what they needed to do to keep people safe. There are, though, there's some powerful politicians out here who do appear very upset with PG&E, including Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, let me bring you his comments. Governor, speaking of PG&E, saying they're in bankruptcy because of their terrible management going back decades. They created these conditions. Guys, back to you.
Josh, thank you very much. Still to come, a top-rated financial advisor tells us whether investors need to get more cautious on this volatile market.
Plus, amid growing fears about a global slowdown, investors are looking to see what action the Fed will take at its October meeting. At this year's Delivering Alpha conference, BlackRock's Rick Reeder told CNBC how he expects the Fed to act.
Yeah, I think there's more to come. I think you'll get another 25. I think the market's pricing it generally right. I actually think you'll get another 25 this year, and you'll probably get another 50 next year. I think, one of the things I think is important that people don't talk about, which you alluded to, the balance sheet is incredibly important. When the Fed drops the balance sheet from $4.4 trillion to $3.7 trillion, and you think about what happened last year, this incredible FX reserve recirculation that took place, Fed needs to let the balance sheet grow.
For more investment ideas from the biggest names in business, visit deliveringalpha.com.
We'll start this. If you can drive a van that's built in Britain, with class-leading fuel economy on every run, to Middlesex to do some masonry, or to Tunbridge carrying well over a ton, yours is the all-new Vauxhall Vivaro, and you'll be driving a great Brit van, my son. All-new Vauxhall Vivaro carries British business. To find out more, search New Vauxhall Vivaro.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
You'll also get live commercial-free news,
plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying today.
Did you know TuneIn doesn't just live here on your smart speaker? From the audio that moves you to the audio that gets you moving. Soundtrack your every movement with the free TuneIn app. Available on your phone or tablet. Download TuneIn on the App Store today.
With the general election just over a year away, the top 12 presidential hopefuls reconvene Tuesday in Ohio for the fourth Democratic debate. While this edition features the most crowded stage yet, the field is set to shrink next month, making this many candidates' last chance to get heard.
You got to defend the fact that today...
Houston, we have a problem.
Wherever you are when the debate starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can listen to CNN's exclusive live coverage on TuneIn. Just search CNN to listen.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Female First as Jay-Z and Beyonce are working on a new song together. A source tells The Sun that they recently shot a music video for their new track. It's one of her most extravagant and expensive shoots. It was mostly filmed in LA and has a highly choreographed routine and also a steamy romantic scene. She's working with some new creatives and is ready to change things up. To hear music from Beyonce, search today's hits on TuneIn.
TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live, regular season matchups and rivalry games, conference championships and bowl games, the college football playoff.
And throw it. He's got it on stiff arm. End zone. Touchdown.
You can listen to it all for free at home, on campus, or on the road. Hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long free on TuneIn.
CNBC unveiling the inaugural Financial Advisor 100 list today. The FA 100 firms represent a combined $3.3 trillion in assets under management. They were ranked using a proprietary methodology developed by CNBC in partnership with data provider AccuPoint Solutions. Key criteria include total years in business, average account size, and total accounts under management. Coming in at number 7 on this year's list is California Financial Advisors. The firm's principal, Michelle Perry-Higgins, joins us now. Michelle, thank you so much for being here with us today. We spent the majority of our show talking about how to play this market when you're in the middle of such uncertainty because of the trade war. When you're talking to your clients, what do you tell them about how to position their portfolios?
Well, thank you for having me. And before I forget, shout out to Sarah and her little new bundle of joy. So with my clients right now in our firm, we have been heavily focused, obviously, on getting them ready for a more defensive stance. And so we have been rotating all profits out of equities and into our fixed income defensive barrier, getting ready for worst case scenario. Could we be heading into a recession? Obviously, there's a lot of talk surrounding that. Some days it's yes, some days it's no, but we are planning as if we are going into one.
So just arbitrarily taking all profits from equities, or are there certain sectors that you're particularly deciding have overrun themselves?
So we've been pretty diligent about rebalancing often, and so we've definitely pruned those areas that have been hefty. We've seen a lot of profit in the large cap, mid cap, small cap sector. We've had some great growth in the REITs this year. And so as we've rotated those down into our defensive barrier, which at California Financial Advisors, our defensive barrier is our fixed income safe side of our portfolio. We are putting that into T-bills, money market, and high-quality bond funds.
And you obviously speak to your clients very often. How would you gauge their level of fear and bearishness, and what's their kind of number one concern?
Yeah, so I think, the number one concern that's brought up at most reviews, are we heading into a recession or aren't we? And I think many of us are questioning that. So we continue to plan accordingly as if we are heading into a recession or definitely a slowing economy. We are seeing both domestic and global slowing. And so what do you do if you're heading into a recession? We definitely are trying to mitigate risk. We're trying to increase cash reserves. taking profits right now. And so getting people prepared. If you're heading into a recession, are you ready? And that's what all investors should be asking themselves right now.
If we're not heading into recession, quickly, Michelle, though, I mean, what happens on the missed opportunity for your clients?
Well, the good news is we definitely are still holding a sizable amount in equities, and so portfolios are defensively positioned, but we're not completely getting out of equities. We're being smart, we're long-term investors, and really making sure we're resetting expectations with clients. Moving forward, we are not going to see the same returns the next 5 years that we have the last 5 years. So ensuring that they understand equities will not feel the same that they did, nor will the bond side of the portfolio. And we're still holding enough in equities that we're not missing any of these great runs that we've seen, but they're going to be protected during any serious corrections or that when that black swan comes.
Michelle, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And congrats on number 7 in the CNBC FA 100. You can check out the whole list, cnbc.com/FA-100.
Well, up next, Mike Santilli takes a closer look at a key piece of data out this morning and why it could change the Fed's calculations.
The chance of being hurt while using a leaf blower is about 3,000 to 1. Ooh, unlucky. Never mind, at Curry's PC World, there's a 1 in 10 chance to get half your money back on all 2019 LG OLED TVs, like the LG C9, described by Which as simply the best. Get blown away with Apple AirPlay, Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa built in. And there's up to £500 off. So the question is, are you feeling lucky? At Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply. GB16 plus. See currys.co.uk.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. We study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live, regular season matchups and rivalry games, conference championships and bowl games, the college football playoff.
The throw, he steps up, he's going deep down the right side. Andrews.
You can listen to it all for free.
The end zone, touchdown.
At home, on campus, or on the road, hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long, free on TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news from MSNBC, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio happenings across the app. Explore exclusive content.
It's called Indie.
Learn about the hottest new podcasts.
The Nostalgia Mixtape, a new podcast hosted by yours truly, Savannah Shroudi.
And get alerted when the big game's about to begin.
This Sunday is Championship Sunday, when we'll find out which two teams are going to play for the Lombardi Trophy.
Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Welcome back. A reminder how we finished today here on Wall Street. Up 150 points on the Dow, 0.6%. All sectors on the S&P were higher other than utilities. We were led higher by energy. Now, President Trump just made comments moments ago. Let's listen in.
Completed a negotiation with China. We're doing very well. We're having another one tomorrow. I'm meeting with the Vice Premier over at the White House. And I think it's going really well. I will say, I think it's going really well. So we had a very, very good negotiation with China. They'll be speaking a little bit later, but they're basically wrapping it up, and we're going to see them tomorrow right here, and it's going very well.
Mr. President, sir, what conversation?
What happened? Who took 900,000? it's not true that Joe Biden took $900,000. I haven't heard that. I hope it's not true. For the sake of the country, I hope that's not true. But I don't know anything about it.
Mr. President, sir. Mr. President.
What? Who? I don't know, but I know the whistleblower has been very inaccurate, because when we released the transcript of the conversation that I had with the president of Ukraine, who frankly today was very good, somewhere in Ukraine, I guess, gave a news conference on unrelated things, was asked a question, and he said President Trump behaved in a perfectly fine manner. There was nothing wrong in any way, shape, or form, something to that effect. So I appreciate that. But the president of Ukraine, that should be case over, because the president of Ukraine said that call was absolutely fine. I think he said that it resembled very much, that he remembered it. It was just like the transcript. Now, the transcript is a perfect transcript. There shouldn't be any further questions. But the president of Ukraine just made that statement, so that's good.
Mr. President, sir, what conversations have you had with Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman?
I don't know those gentlemen.
You're in pictures
Now, it's
with
possible I have a picture with them, because I have a picture with everybody. I have a picture with everybody here. But somebody said there may be a picture or something where at a fundraiser or somewhere. But I have pictures with everybody.
Have you talked with them?
I don't know if there's anybody I don't have pictures with. I don't know them. I don't know about them. I don't know what they do. But I don't know. Maybe they were clients of Rudy. You'd have to ask Rudy. I just don't know.
As far as it comes to Syria, sir.
No. Well, I don't know how you can impeach on a conversation with the president of a country, in this case Ukraine, which was a perfect conversation, where the president of Ukraine just said there was no pressure put on him whatsoever, that we had a absolutely perfect conversation. Then on top of that, and maybe less importantly, frankly, but on top of that, we have a transcript of the conversation, fortunately, that's perfect. And I do think this, I think it's very unfair to heads of countries when they think every time they make a conversation or have a conversation with the president of the United States, it's going to be on, all over the world. I think that's very unfair. But in the case of what we're talking about, we released a perfect conversation. The president of Ukraine just confirmed that, and that should be case over. I will say this, Adam Schiff took that conversation before he saw it and fabricated a conversation. To me, that's criminal. What he did is criminal.
Mr. President, on Joe Biden, sir.
I just don't think you're running a country. I just don't think...
President Trump speaking just there. Let's get to Ayman. Liu He, the Chinese vice premier, is leaving his meeting. We're going to come to Ayman in a moment. There it is. As the president just said, he said the talks went very well, confirmed that they would continue tomorrow and indeed continue at the White House, no less. A big change from shortly after the market closed yesterday, when it was expected that the Chinese delegation could leave tonight. That hasn't happened. We had a strong market performance today. We're up a little bit after hours, of course, on thin volume. Ayman Jabbas joins us at the White House with some key takeaways from those comments from the president.
Yeah, Wilfred, we're really reduced to looking at the body language here of these negotiators as they come in and out of the rooms. Do they look happy? Do they seem like they're getting to a deal? The president there just saying that things are going very well, saying that he thinks they're all but wrapped up at this point, and he's going to go ahead with that meeting in the Oval Office tomorrow. So presumably we'll get some more information there. The president not saying they've gotten to a deal, but saying negotiators basically finished their work today, and he's going to meet with Liu He tomorrow. So we'll see, as the president likes to say, what happens tomorrow. Positive, mood music from the president today and people around him, but not a lot of specifics there from the president of the United States, Wilfred.
But Ayman, as of course Kayla's been reporting throughout the day, we wouldn't be having a meeting in the White House, in the Oval Office, with cameras presumably in there as well, unless there was going to be a positive tone expected to come from that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They wouldn't set these people up, the principals up for